Hey everybody, today we have Shea on the show. So Shea, I'm assuming this is your first podcast.
It is. I'm a bit nervous.
That's okay. I think like everyone is nervous, and like most people it's their first podcast, so it's totally normal. But do you want to introduce yourself, like who you are, just your name, your age, like your kids, whatever you want to say about yourself?
Yeah. No, I don't know if I want to say my age.
You
I
don't
feel
have to
very
say your
old.
age. Look, we can just say you're 21.
Yeah, 21 forever. Happy birthday for yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm Shea. Got two children. I've been married 10 years in September this year. I've lived in Cairns, Townsville, and Melbourne. Grew up in Townsville my whole young life until I was 18, and then I ran away, left it.
Cool. So, I've got Shea on today. I actually know Shea because she trains with us at Train with the Girls. I also do her nutrition coaching. And Shea has been through a lot over the last few years, not to be specific, and had a lot of surgeries, has a lot of medical things that she's had to overcome, but still has to deal with every single day. And so the reason we wanted to have Shea on the show and that Shea was happy to come on the show was basically for other people who have gone through the same thing or are going through the same thing, because I think it's really important for them to know that they're not alone. Would you have anything that you would add to that, Shea?
Yeah, I think people really think like you get a chronic illness and you live in chronic pain, and that determines your life. It kind of puts a stop to what you think you can do, and you're in this mindset, well, my life is over.
Yeah.
And it's learning that it's far from over, and you can work around it and you can work with it.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and that's the thing that you do. Like, you've got to learn to get back on that bike again and again and again, even when it's not your fault that you sort of have to get off the bike, which I think is a hard thing. But would you say that the more you get back on it, the easier it becomes to make yourself get back on it again?
Yes and no. I think emotionally, each time you get pushed back, it gets harder, but physically it's easier. Like, you've just, because your body remembers, like you've been training, so your body doesn't forget what you've done.
Yeah.
First few sessions are hard, but once you get back, your mindset starts to return. It starts to fall back into place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back. I know obviously different bits and pieces, but I probably don't know like your exact timeline and stuff like that, and exactly all the stuff. And we don't have to go into detail on every single bit of area, just wherever you feel like is necessary.
Yeah.
But if you want to take us back to maybe like from the start when you first had something come up that led into this whole journey,
Yeah.
and just explain to everyone what you've had going on.
Yeah, no worries. So the first signs of this actually started when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
But we put it down to, maybe, so I've got, sorry, let me start with what I've got to make it easier. I've got hydrocephalus, so water on the brain due to spina bifida. So I've just got that small opening in my spine, which they say is unremarkable. It's nothing exciting, but it has caused secondaries. So I had a lot of headaches as a child growing up, and I was always told my hair's too tight, I need to wear my glasses. It was always excuses. When I was 11, they thought I had meningitis, so I was rushed to hospital, and the symptoms are exactly the same. And they checked for the clarity of the CSF fluid, and they didn't check how fast it was actually coming out of my body. And so they sent me on my way. They're like, oh, you don't have meningitis, nothing's wrong with you, go home. So I did. I lived my whole life in pain, not realizing that it wasn't normal. That was my normal. I couldn't play sports a lot. I couldn't do anything really. I was very boring growing up. And then I met my husband. I was 21 when I met him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And then we started dating. I was around 22 by that stage, and almost 22, and it was just little things. And I went to hospital a few times saying, guys, I've got a really bad headache. I don't know what's wrong. Something doesn't feel right. Because the GP couldn't help. They sent me for scans. They're like, oh, you're normal. Nothing's wrong. And so I was just like, oh, okay. So I
Mm,
went to hospital, pushed, and they're like, oh, you've got migraines. There is nothing wrong with you, girl. Like, just go home, take tablets. You're being a bit dramatic. Our first wedding anniversary was actually spent with me in hospital.
mm,
And that's where it all sort of come undone. And they realized that they had made mistakes my whole life. So I was in Cairns. I lived in Cairns. My husband was in the Navy. So I lost my sight. It's really hard to explain. So the first time something went wrong, it was just headaches, constant headaches. And I was like, okay, I kept going to hospital. They're like, no, it's just a migraine, go home. And they just tried me on these different medications.
mm.
And then it got to the point my eyes went and I started having double vision. I'm like, well, this isn't normal. And I remember driving around having one eye closed just to see where I was going,
Yeah.
making it home. And then that day, like my eyes just went so fast. They just went from double vision to my right eye lost vision completely and my left was going. So hubby, I was like, you need to take me back to hospital. Something's not right. And he made a joke. He's like, oh, let me eat first. They're just going to send you home anyway. I've just finished work. I
Yeah.
was like, sure, do what you got to do. And I went back and I had this one doctor, it was a different doctor this time. And she believed me that something wasn't right. And she's like, you know what, we're going to find what's wrong with you because I know you've been coming in and they've turned you away. So they ran a few tests and they looked in the back of my eyes and I had this thing called papilledema. So my optic nerves were completely compressed by the fluid.
Yeah.
So they flew me to Townsville, and that was really the start of what I thought was the end.
Yeah. Because you thought that you were finding out sort of what was wrong.
Yeah, yes. So they kind of were like, okay, something's not right. We're going to fly you to Townsville. We don't have neurosurgeons here.
Mm,
I got a emergency flight by Royal Doctors, and I was in theatre when I arrived.
yeah.
That operation went for 12 hours. They told my family it would be over in 3. So they really struggled. Um, yeah, that was sort of the start. And they told me after I received this operation, they put a shunt in to drain fluid for me because my brain can't drain it.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, this is your new normal, go get used to it, and sent me on my way.
So what year
Um,
was that you had that first operation?
that was September 2012.
And so when you had the fluid, like behind the eyes and that, you went in for that operation, that's when they put the shunt in as well?
Yeah, so they put the shunt in. They realized, so when I'd lost my sight. No, about. Sorry, interruption. It's my son.
Okay. You can interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's when they realized that they've gone and fucked up their diagnosis of migraines and they sent me on to Townsville to receive better care.
Yeah. So what year did you say was that you had the shunt?
2012, and it all happened really fast from when my eyes went to me landing in Townsville to going to theatre because they realized like this is urgent. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so at that stage, I think I was 23 when that happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just I thought I didn't think I was gonna die. I didn't think it was that serious. Like at that stage, I was just like, oh, I'm a bit sick. Like
Yeah.
it never really went like, oh, my life is over. That
Yeah.
didn't happen later
You
on
just
down the track.
realize like the long term everything that you went.
Yeah. Well, the way they said it, they said, you can live a normal, healthy life. Like this won't stop you. You're fine.
Yeah.
But my surgeon made the biggest mistake that altered the course of my life.
Yeah. And so what was that?
He didn't put a valve or an anti-siphon device on my shunt, so it continually drained. it was just, I had no fluid. And you think of the brain, it's probably the heaviest organ in your body. I
Mm,
was looking it up, it weighs, a couple of kilos.
mm,
So the fluid's there to hold the brain up,
mm.
to make it weightless. And so I had no fluid around my brain.
Yeah. And so when
Um,
they put a shunt in, is the normal procedure that they should put a valve on it?
yes,
Yeah. And so he's just literally stuffed up and not put it on.
that's right. And I was in that. So a few days, I think it was maybe a week later, I ended up in ICU
Mm.
because I was vomiting. I had all the symptoms again, and I was like, oh, my shunt must be broken. Like, I'm vomiting. I was passing out, couldn't stand to shower. My husband had to hold me up, dry me, lay me down because I'd just passed out. I didn't know what was wrong, but something wasn't right. That's all I knew.
Mm.
They performed another operation called an ICP, so intracranial pressure monitor. So they drill into the brain, they stick a little probe in your brain and it monitors the pressure, so
Yeah.
the fluid around the brain. It showed that there was none. And all they told me was that's your new normal, get used to it. And they discharged me back home.
So they didn't, obviously, they still didn't know that that valve wasn't there.
Yeah, like he just, yeah, I get a bit emotional. He just told me, like, get used to your life. This is what it is. We're not helping you anymore.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was tough to hear,
And so that's
especially.
not obviously what you're normal supposed to be when you've got a shunt because the shunt wasn't operating correctly. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's and so in Cairns, I went back to hospital because I passed out 3 times within the day.
Yeah.
Um, and I went back and they're like, Cairns neurologists, they were talking to the surgeons in Townsville. They're like, she just needs caffeine, crush up some like no dose, put it through an intravenous strip, she'll be fine.
Jesus.
So because caffeine, it does something, it dilates vessels or constricts vessels, I don't know which one, but
Yeah.
it creates fluid, it produces more fluid.
Yeah.
So
And so since that very first operation when you got the shunt put in, you've had a lot of operations. So how many have you had total since then?
since then, I've had 25
Yeah. But a lot
since
of them have
then.
been more recent, haven't they?
Since 2018, I've had 29 operations all up,
Yeah.
and 26 of them have been since 2018.
Yeah. So in the last really 2 and a bit years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I've gone through, and 24 of them have been on my brain.
Yeah. That's insane. And I mean, so when they found out, well, when, obviously, now that there wasn't a valve put in, so how long did it take them to work that out?
So I moved to Melbourne after living in Cairns. We got transferred in the Navy
Mm,
to Melbourne to be with family, because my partner was missing so much time off work. They're like, you need someone around your wife to look after her because you've got a job to do. You've got a
yeah.
duty to the people. So we went to Melbourne. In 2013, I had 2 more shunt replacements, and they didn't pick up that there was no valve. So they assumed because the surgeon had done his job that there was a reason the valve was missing, and so they did it exactly the way it was.
Oh my God.
So and then after that, I battled for 6 years with neurologists, telling them that I was in pain, I was passing out, I was bedridden, and they told me multiple times that I had migraines and it was just migraines and nothing was wrong.
I
Um,
can't believe that they literally, even when they replaced your shunt, replaced it
yeah.
without the freaking valve because they just assumed.
Well, you think you can trust other surgeons, like
Mm.
obviously there was a reason it was done that way. And so they just did what they thought was best. um, Thanks. And yeah, so it's been a hard upwards battle since then.
Yeah, yeah. And so when did they actually work out? Like, so you had those 2 replacement shunts. What did it take for them to work out that there wasn't a valve, like that there was supposed to be a valve?
I ended up in 2018. Oh, it was 2017. Sorry. I finally put my foot down and told neurology I did not want to see them and I needed my surgeon. And they discharged me. I left because I was meant to fly. It was Christmas time and my family had taken my kids and they'd had them for the previous 4 weeks because I couldn't get out of bed. So they were in Townsville and I was meant to fly to Townsville. So I got an outpatient appointment with this new neurosurgeon. I said to him, I can't laugh, I can't cough, I can't wee, I can't do anything without this pain and I'm passing out. And he asked me where the pain was and I said, it's the back of my head. He sent me for an urgent MRI and they confirmed that I had Chiari malformation. So my brain was coming out the base of my skull because there was no fluid to hold it up.
Oh my
So
God.
that was 2017.
Yeah, yeah. And so did they replace the shunt and put in a valve then, or what had to happen then?
I had already had flights booked. He told me to go be with family. He's like, I understand you're in pain. He gave me what he considered manageable pain relief just to get through so I could go be with my kids. And then in January, I returned. I went to hospital on the 13th of January and I didn't come out until the very end of February, start of March. And that's when it all sort of took its toll on my body. So he realized the shunt was not the right shunt. And they tried to put it in my brain because that's where most shunts are supposed to be. You know, they call it a VP, a ventricular peritoneal shunt. So it goes in the ventricles of the brain. And when he took out the LP shunt, he assumed that because it's been overdraining, maybe my body could get used to having just normal fluid around it and I could go without a shunt. So he operated on the 13th of February. And I went downhill by 7 p.m. I was swollen, screaming, uncontrollable. I had lost 4 liters of fluid, so I had a catheter. And they're like, okay, something's not right. And they realized I couldn't live without a shunt, but they didn't realize until the following Sunday. And my body was shutting down and I was rushed to emergency surgery because they didn't think I was going to make it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
it was really tough.
yeah. Oh man, I cannot even, like people think it's tough dealing with day-to-day stuff. Like most people probably in their whole life wouldn't go through what you've gone through in like the past, 8-10 years.
Yeah.
So when they rushed you to emergency, then they put a shunt back in?
Yeah, so I'd lost my sight again. So that was the second time I went blind.
Yeah.
Each time you go blind, you do more damage to your eyes. And they realized, okay, she really needs a shunt. Can't live without it. It was 11 p.m. on a Sunday night, and they just rushed me in. I didn't come out until 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But I just remember it was euphoric. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing, no pain. I just remember crying, saying, is this what normal is? Because, my whole life had been this horrible pain that I can't even begin to describe. Like, no one understood. And then waking up from that operation and not feeling pain was just like, it was euphoric. I couldn't sleep. I was awake for 24 hours straight because I just couldn't get over what it was like.
Yeah. That's okay. Are
Yeah.
you okay?
Yeah. Just reliving. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think going back and like going through it all is definitely you sort of like
There's
remembering those
emotions.
feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've just learned I can't look back because it's never ending. Like I
Yeah.
just keep going forwards.
Yeah.
But I thought that was the end right there. My life would be fine.
Yeah.
Little did I know that I'd have 10 operations that year alone.
Yeah. So when they put that shunt back in, and like obviously they had a valve in at that time, so it felt like, you know, like you felt normal.
Yeah,
Then what sort of was the issue from there?
because my brain had suffered so much trauma for 6 years. Like there was just no fluid. Not right now. Pop out for me, please. Because it'd been through so much trauma and no fluid, my ventricles did something they weren't supposed to, and they remained slit. So they're very non-existent. And so when they put the tip of the catheter in, like you have to remember, this is like as small as a pinhead,
Mm,
this catheter, just to take off excess fluid. It kept being absorbed by my brain.
yeah.
So my it just couldn't work.
Yeah.
But they attempted to keep it working, so they kept replacing it each time. By the last operation, which was the week before Christmas in 2018, they're like, if this fails again, we're going to have to go through and do an LP, so the lumbar peritoneal shunt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they realized something wasn't right, but they were hoping, given that there was fluid passing through, but not a lot, that my ventricles would open up again.
Yeah. 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 So did
Yeah,
they end up then having to change the type of shunt?
they did in that, but I had moved back. So I moved back to Townsville. 2018 proved so difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
I missed my daughter starting 4-year-old kinder.
Mm-hmm.
I lost a baby in between operations, a little boy. It wasn't the best time to ever be pregnant, but it still hurts
Oh, it doesn't.
having that loss. It
Yeah.
doesn't change.
No.
Um, and I didn't have support in Melbourne. And so every time I was in hospital, I was paying for one of my sisters or my mum to come to Melbourne and look after me. So they had to give up work, and we were trying to pay to cover their bills just to have that help and support. In December, I made the decision I couldn't do this anymore, and I wanted to go home.
Yeah.
So went home back to Townsville.
Yeah. Yeah.
They realized that my body couldn't do with VP shunts, so it was their decision, but it was still a hard time to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between that December and April when it was realized.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you've had like a number of shunts and things change since then. Um
Yeah,
and you still like experiencing some issues now, hey?
yeah, it's not easy. I was in hospital. I think this was my first week back training, and I was in hospital for a week, the
Yeah.
week before that. So
But they don't know the cause still?
it was over draining again. We can't. It was over draining again.
Yeah.
So they had to, but the thing with the shunts they put in the LP shunt I ended up with is they can stick a device over it,
Mm-hmm.
and they can change settings. So the original one I had could never be changed. It was just a old school, never used type of shunt.
Yeah.
But this one they got to change around, and they can play with settings when needed. So
Yeah.
it meant I avoided another operation because of that.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And so they've been able to stop it from overdraining now. So hopefully you can at least have some sort of time frame that you're not having as extreme pain.
Yeah, look, my life is never going to be pain-free, I've learned,
Yeah.
just due to everything that's happened and the way it's happened. But it's manageable, you know. I
Yeah.
can make it work for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, since having a shunt that works properly, I can do things with my children that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
Like as a mum, you kind of have that mum guilt, and I really had it because my kid's whole life was a sick mum in hospital, like until recently. So it's been really tough on them. It's been tough
Yeah.
on everyone. you don't think it affects, like, people assume someone's sick, it just affects them, but it's like this massive ripple effect. It affects so many people, and you don't realize that until you're
Yeah,
put through it.
definitely. It would affect your whole family, like, and not just, as in your families and your kids and husband, like also your parents and your siblings and their
Yeah,
family.
it's yeah, it does. It affects a lot.
Yeah,
Um, and then their workplace, my workplace, because I can work again, and it's the little things that no one assumes, and like, yeah, it's just massive.
yeah. But that's such a huge feat as well. Like now you're training, like before, like you said, you went through so much where you couldn't even like shower or go to the toilet. And
Yeah,
now you're training one of the hardest trainers in the session, by the way.
look, I just think I can do it, so I like pushing myself hard. I
Yeah,
think I like this pain because I control it.
yeah,
So I like knowing I'm pushing myself hard enough to just keep going. I've learned I have to listen to my body though.
yeah,
I like to pretend that I'm not,
yeah,
sick.
yeah,
So sometimes I try to ignore what I shouldn't ignore, but
yeah,
it's a learning process, really.
yeah. You need to
You
know
really
what,
got to learn your body.
yeah. So you need to know like what pain when you're training is sort of the right kind of pain that is caused from the training and normal essentially. And then what pain is the pain that you need to recognize and stop.
Yeah, yeah, you do. I can't do so I've learned I can't jump a lot because that just messes with the fluid going up and down. So
Yeah,
I might have to change the flow of how we train sometimes and just
yeah,
change things up a little bit. But I make
yeah,
it work.
yeah. You work around your limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, and that's like I think why it's so important to have you on here because people who might be going through that at the moment, and like you said, sometimes, and this is a lot of other people, you just feel like it's going to be something for the rest of your life that you just have to deal with. And so it's nice that you're able to find the positives and work around and do
Yeah.
what you can and still you're still try to improve yourself, like your health, your fitness, your mentality, all of it. Which I
Yeah.
think is a big deal and gives you something to focus on as well. Like you said, this is a way of something you can control.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to be in control of most aspects of my life.
Yeah,
So it's been really tough learning I can't control that. So
yeah,
yeah, taking back control of what I can do and working out. And I found it really important. Actually, I wanted to be around for a long time, and being as big as I was, this it's something I could do for myself and for my kids, and just taking that back.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, wrapping it all up, if you could give one piece of advice go to someone who is going through something similar to you, where they've got some form of medical condition or something that really is going to affect them for the rest of their life in one sense or another, or just anyone going through any sort of struggle at the moment, what would it be?
Keep pushing and don't doubt yourself. Listen to your body. Listen to what your body's saying, but also remember that there's certain areas you can control, whether it be your eating or just doing light exercising. Like, don't let illness and sickness and pain control you.
Yeah,
You have your bad days, but you get back up and you keep going.
yeah, so good, better days are coming.
That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
you've
so
got
much
this.
for sharing your story and your little piece of advice. I feel like this is really necessary because, these sort of things aren't super common. So people wouldn't meet or know a lot of other people going through this sort of stuff. Like you said, like you told me a while ago, you had a friend who was going through other sort of things where it was just that long-term stuff. And it's not easy, and I think people probably definitely have a loneliness within that. um
Yeah, definitely.
so did you want to share your Instagram in case anyone wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, so my Instagram page kind of documents a bit of my weight loss, a bit of my health journey, because I found awareness really important.
Mhm.
It's Fat Girl Fit, and Fit has 3 T's because it's a popular name I've learned. It's an open profile, so you can have a look. You can see pretty much everything I've been through. I'm pretty open with it
Yeah.
because looking at me, you can't tell that I'm sick.
Yeah, yeah. No, no worries. And I'll pop that in the description as well so that anyone can see how it's spelled out or anything. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll talk to you soon anyways.
You will. Thanks, Em.
Thanks. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.